please.
Absolutely. Okay. Director Bowles. Here. Director Dye. Here. Director Randall. Here. Director Marsh. Here. Also in attendance is Assistant General Manager Hope Atmore. Chuck Duffy, General Manager, is attending via Zoom. Bill Parkin is not attending tonight.
Thank you, Hope. All right, so we have a relatively on paper light agenda, but in reality, maybe not so light. Before we get started, let's have general public participation. So as a reminder, public members may comment on matters under the jurisdiction of the district that are not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. So we will be timing. Hope, I think we'll be keeping time. And we'll start in the room first, and then we'll open it up to anyone on the Zoom. Is there anyone in the room that has a comment they'd like to make?
Am I the only one?
I don't even know if you are a one.
Right.
Yeah,
Our item's not on the agenda.
Let's do what we were saying.
No. So go ahead and step up there.
All right, my name is Bruce Crutel. I live over on Valencia Avenue. And I would just like the board to consider, basing your sewer rates. I saw the mailer you just put out where we're heading to about $100 a month, flat rate. And I just think that's inequitable, that we need to charge based on usage by reading meters. Now, for people who are well owners who don't have a meter on their well, you could flat rate them. So there's no loopholes, right? If you don't have a meter and you're on a well. But it seems to me, I don't know of any utilities that charge flat rate, except maybe cell phones if you buy a flat rate plan. And that's it. So I'd like you to consider that. I brought it up in the past. It went nowhere. I think maybe the board's being lazy. You got to do the homework, right? And be equitable and charge people for what they use. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments in the room? All right, on Zoom, are there any comments? Okay. Seeing as there are no other comments, then we'll move to regular meeting agenda.
Can I just ask a question? What is our monthly sewer fee? It's nowhere near $100, right?
Well, right now it's
Heading that way.
$860, right? Yeah, now right now it's $860 a month, or sorry, $860 a year. It's going to go up to, the proposal is to go up to $905 starting next year.
Okay, thank you.
75. And eventually 1,100.
In the course of the next 5 years, we'd be around it.
This is sewer charges, not water charges.
No, we don't do.
And that's also a maximum, remember. So your board has discretion every year to not increase it as much.
And when hasn't it gone up every year on our property?
Sorry, this cannot become an agenda discussion. Sorry, it's not an agenda item. We can only comment from the public. All right. Moving on to regular meeting agenda. First item is consideration of candidates to fill district board vacancy and resolution appointing a board member. So I believe we have a series of candidates that have submitted. So Hope, do you want to?
We do. I don't know if Chuck wants to chime in and say anything before we start.
No, you can go ahead, Hope.
Okay. Yeah, so we do have 4 candidates who are 3 are here in the room. Looks like we have 1 on Zoom. I'm going to call you up in the order that I received your request to be considered for the appointment, which is going to put Wendy Jensen first. Once you come up, I'm going to ask just a general question, and then there will be an opportunity for the board. However, before we start that process, we do want to open it up for public comment in general.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you wanted to open it, kick things off first.
Just
Nope.
that, and then
Okay.
we'll go from there.
Yep. All right. So then we will first take public comment on this item. If there is any. Okay, seeing as there's none, then we'll close public comment. So then the first person we'll have come up will be Wendy Jensen.
I'm actually just going through that.
Asking, I was ready to.
So just generally, we're going to ask each candidate as you come up, just why you put your name in for the possibility.
Okay, do you want to start with that?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Wendy Jensen, and I have lived in El Granada now for 5 years, and I love living here. I love the community. I have 2 children that are in the schools here, and this has really become home to us. And so that's part of why I have personal interest. I'm sure we all have similar stories of being, living here and having that be a personal interest. I think for me, what really opened my eyes to having an opportunity to be on a board like this was I purchased a lot here. That's what started my journey onto the coast side, and went through the whole process through the county of getting my lot permitted and ready to build. I have since sold that property and given it to somebody else, but I got through the full permitting process. And during that time, had a lot of opportunity to speak to other boards and to appeal the case that I had for my family to create a home for ourselves here on the coast. So because of that experience, I felt like it would be a neat opportunity to be able to get involved in those kind of things and in those decision makers, because I feel like there were a lot of people who along the way that I was really grateful for, who had wise things to say when I was facing boards, that they were making decisions that affected my family and my livelihood, and where, whether or not we were going to be able to live or build the home that we had planned. And so I was really grateful for those voices of reason that stood up for the things that I was proposing. And I would love to be able to do that for somebody else, both on the side of people who are presenting change to our community and people who are hoping to preserve the integrity of our community the way it is and keep things small and intimate. So that's kind of why I was excited about this opportunity.
Right. Other questions for Wendy?
Yeah, I have a question. Hi, Wendy. What do you think the most important thing is for the GCSD board to spend taxpayer dollars on?
That's a really hard question.
Sorry, right out of the chute.
That's a really hard question. I mean, I do think it's important. I'm going to go off of the big two things that I feel like are at the forefront of all of the residents' minds right now, but between our sewer system and the rate increases proposed on that, and then also the proposed park. I think between the both, I mean, when I first get a letter in the mail, there's the sewer system saying that my rates are going to increase. The first thing you think is, no, everything here is already so expensive. But when I started to read into it, I think making sure that the systems that we have are continuing to be able to serve our community and keep El Granada the great place that it is really important. And so that's something that I would personally like to do more research on and find out, what is that money going to, who is it paying, and what are the, because I saw in one of the letters that it said some of our systems are back to 1920. And if that's the case, then yeah, we probably do need to update that infrastructure and make sure that we're able to continue functioning into the future. I mean, nobody wants to pay a bill until water's flowing out of the side of the road and we don't have water to our homes. So I do think that's really important. And then the parks and having that space available for everybody to commune together, I think is very important. I think, it's important to have the needs, but it's also important to have our wants. And a want is be able to have a place where we can come together as a community and interact and get to know each other and build those bonds that we have. So, yeah, those are kind of, the two areas that I think are at the forefront of my mind right now.
And just to follow up, what do you think of the park activities are the most important?
Meaning between the preschool and
Or just the discussion that we've been having about the types of activities that the
that could be present
rec
there.
center park would
Yeah. I would love in a perfect world to be able to accommodate all of it. I mean, right? Wouldn't we all love to be able to have a preschool and a rec center and all of those things? I do appreciate, I think it was a really smart move of the board to put out the survey and take the time to ask the community what was actually wanted. I feel like I have a lot of friends who have children in the preschool age, and I feel like there's a lot of passionate responses toward that. But then I also think about myself as having children, those years when my kids were in preschool don't last very long. And so there's also the mindset of what it could do for the community, for our seniors, for those people who are still living here without children, how they could use those facilities and how it could make their lives better. So I think it's a tricky one. I guess I don't really want to put out my own personal opinion on this, but I think that it's important to listen to what the community wants and to take that into account along the way and allocate our funds the best we can to hopefully come up with a compromise that makes everybody happy. So.
Thank you.
We were talking just before, I'm Nancy.
Hi.
Just before we started, it is a challenge to get a full sense of the community. People participate to the extent they want. So what ideas do you have to make sure that when we're representing the community, the full community we represent, that we can assure ourselves we are getting enough information to make good decisions with how to spend their money?
That's a really tough one. I heard the conversation before about 25% of the people actually taking the time to fill out the survey. And while I do agree with you, that's the pretty for, just sending it out. That's still a small amount of the overall community. And of course, I feel like it's one of those things that no matter what you do, somebody is going to have a complaint about it. I think that so far, it seems like the board has done a good job of getting the word out on Nextdoor. I saw signs around. I was on several different group text threads saying, please do this. So I think involvement in the community here for me personally means showing up to my kids' school activities, showing up to activities in the park, things that are posted and that are available, going to the post office, getting to know people that way, because we all have our circles. It's easy to stay, for me, my circle is Granada Elementary, Cunha Middle School. And I could really quickly say, well, that's what everybody thinks. Well, not everybody has children. Not everybody is, in the same situation that I am. So trying to kind of break out of that and volunteer at Coastside Hope or find other ways that I can broaden my circle and get to know other people in the community, and then opening my mouth and letting them know, hey, this is something that's on our agenda mind. What do you think about that? Have you ever thought of coming down to a meeting and voicing that? Or here's the link to this survey and things like that. So trying to force myself out of my small circle to get to know the broader community and people that maybe wouldn't just come across my way without me seeking them out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So
Do you have time to do the prep and the work that it requires to sort of be an informed board member? And I know if you've got kids, sometimes that's hard, but I also think that you have kids that brings a good perspective to what we're trying to do. So,
yeah,
and you have to do the most boring ethics training ever, and various
very
other
important.
commitments. Yes,
Yeah.
there's a lot of pieces to this, and then and then in addition, some members also serve on the SAM board, the sewer board.
okay. Do I have time? Do any of us have time? Right? That's always the $1 million question. I am very busy. I'm not looking for something to make me more busy. That's not what I'm looking for. I try to bring things into my life that bring a reward of meaning and being able to help others and to reach others. So, yes, I would make it a priority to make sure that I made the time to be researched and to be an informed member of the board, because what other reason would I be here? My mindset would be to be able to bring answers to people. And like I said, if I'm out in the community, being a representative of the El Granada board, that's a big responsibility. And that's something that we want people to be able to look at to us and know that we are trusted sources that they can give their opinions to. And if somebody comes up to me and has a question about a sewer thing, and I'm like, well, I don't know, that's not going to look very good on our board. So yes, that's something that I would make a priority, is making sure that I'm versed and know what the agendas and what things are that are of issue for our community.
Do you have any questions for us?
I think honestly, in some of your questions, you were able to answer some of them for me, of just like because we meet one Thursday a month, but during the off time, obviously there's much more to being a member of the board than just the one Thursday a month. So I guess my question would be, what's the one thing that you do during the month to keep yourself prepared for the next meeting?
It's
Well, the prep for this meeting, you all got the agenda pack, so 120-page agenda pack with a lot of sewer information is not unusual. So for me, that usually takes, I might spend, 2.5 hours going through it, making notes on anything that I want to ask a question about or follow up. And typically, it's this meeting typically is about 2 hours and a few hours of prep. But two of us also sit on the SAM board, which is another 50-page pack, twice a month. And tends to be not your first year on the board, because it takes a while to kind of get to know that dynamic.
Yeah.
But the SAM members probably spend, 2 to 3 times as much time. There's just more detail, and it's kind of a complex scenario with 3 member agencies, and the joint powers agreement. So that can be more time consuming, but these generally, I would say, about 6 hours a month. Right now, Jen and I are on an ad hoc committee that will be an extra meeting or 2 a month. So it varies, but I would say generally 8 hours a month.
Yeah, I think the thing that a lot of folks don't realize or is not evident is because of the Brown Act, we're not like a normal board in that we're not like a working board or a board that can meet really off cycle because everything that we do has to be in public. So if there are more than 3 of us, it becomes considered a meeting. So we don't, if like the ad hoc is just Nancy and I, and only the 2 of us can talk about that content, then we bring it into the board meeting. So there isn't side work that's done by this board off cycle or outside of meeting unless it's been approved like by committee or ad hoc committee.
Interesting.
One more.
Yeah.
And I also think it's important to be grounded in the community. In addition to being specific to this board.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're involved in the El Granada PTA, loves the El Granada PTA. But also, I keep an eye on Coastside Buzz and the MCC and the things that are going on. And I think while that's not a requirement, I think it's helpful to have a sense of some of the issues in the overall community.
Absolutely.
So, great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to understand the sentiment of feelings and what's going on about certain topics. And also extremely important to understand what the real facts are. So there isn't misinformation that's spread, which happens.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate your guys' time
Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy.
and your service for what you guys do, even if everything.
Thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
So our next candidate is Anthony Applewhite. So again, Anthony, if you could just give a general answer to why you're interested in being on this.
Sure, thank you for the opportunity. I've been a Coastside resident for 12 years. I love it here. I'm in a position where I'd like to be able to give back to the community. I'm partially retired now, work 20 hours a week, planning to be fully retired. So looking for how I can, help support what goes on in the community. I think I'm in an interesting position. I think it's important that a board represent a broad range. I happen to live in Miramar, and that's sort of an interesting Venn diagram of Half Moon Bay residents and GCSD. So I think I bring that perspective. I'm a degreed engineer, been working in engineering on complex problems for 43 years. Sometimes leading teams, sometimes troubleshooting things. But typically work in large cross-functional groups, trying to make progress and get things completed on time and on budget. So that seems something that might be, helpful. I actually like some of the mechanics. I'm interested in the nuts and bolts of what goes on in the sewage treatment. Maybe working towards being able to contribute to the SAM would be of interest if it fleshed out that manner. What else? I'm excited by how this group has pivoted in its charter and taking over the community services. I look at the Burnham Strip, which is just this sort of extremely large vacant lot. It's been that way for years, and to tackle and turn that into a community resource, which I think is sorely lacking, is really tremendous. One of the places I like to go is tunnel tops in the city, and maybe this would be a small scale version of that. I mean, I think that there's really so much opportunity here and such a big vacancy to be filled.
Mhm.
So I'm excited in possibility to participate in that also.
great.
That's the high level.
Thank you. Questions for Anthony?
I have
Yeah,
one.
go for it.
Have you watched previous GCSD meetings or either on video
Absolutely
or?
not.
Okay.
Full disclosure, I'm honest and upfront. I read through, I guess, well, just looking at YouTube count, I mean, live, yes, I've.
Yeah, the
I did-
PCTV.
Okay,
Yeah.
I haven't set aside an evening to watch, but no, I looked at some of the YouTubes and looked, and there's wanted to get some sort of feel for what I might be getting into.
It can be rollicking.
Yeah.
One of the challenges I think we have, Anthony, is this is the only elected board in the El Granada district, inclusive of Miramar and Clipper Ridge. And being an unincorporated county, sometimes, we're called on to be the city council of El Granada. And one of the challenges we have is watching for mission creep. One of the special things about special district is their focus. And one of the constraining things about special district is they only get like 2 buckets of funds. Property tax for parks, sewer fees for sewers. So when prioritization becomes a significant issue. So in a community this size, 2,000 households, what key things come to your mind about prioritizing how we invest our very limited time and funds and resources? By the way, we have 2 employees, so we have 2.5 times as many board members as we have full-time employees. So we're resource limited.
But you don't necessarily get to mix and match those funds, or you get a lump sum and get to divvy it between sewer and.
We get a whatever the county gives us in property tax every year, and we control our sewer fees as mentioned, but we don't control the property tax.
I mean, it's hard. It's pragmatic. There's pros and cons, I think it's very important that all of our systems that are in place remain functioning in the near term and in the future. Resiliency is sort of the buzzword these days, but there's a lot of things going on, and certainly we have earthquakes and we have extreme weather. And I think there's certainly profound health issues when things don't work properly.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you can't not take care of business. But of course, community is very important.
That's just to clarify, the sewer fees can only be used for sewers.
Yes.
The property tax, we have made a decision that that's what was offered to this community when it was converted to a community services district, is that the property taxes would go for parks. So
sewer fees would go up.
so sewer fees, it said even in the vote, might go up. And so we still have the lower sewers, just about the lowest sewer fees in the county though. So anyway, you want to take a turn? I have
Sure,
a
yeah.
couple more.
So, well, congratulations on being semi-retired. And I know I've lived in El Granada for 25 years, and so I know that a lot goes on that sometimes we're not always, up to speed on. But it sounds like, given the time that it takes to be a part of the GCSD board, do you have any concerns about that, or is this something that you think will fit into your life and your schedule based on what you're doing today and looking ahead?
Yeah, it didn't seem to be an overbearing commitment.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Well, what are there specific parts of the responsibilities of GCSD that interest you more than others? That you feel you might bring special skills toward?
Well, again, I think having an engineering background and being a problem solver, and I do care about infrastructure and making sure that things work properly. And I think it's a somewhat, torturous relationship right now with Sam. And I always consider, you hate to see things come to a point where there's lawsuits filed, and it would be nice to, it would be desperately nice to put that in the rear window and perhaps get to better collaboration with all parties. So it would, to me, that's something that's just quite troubling, that so much time and effort has to be addressed in dealing with that. Don't yet grasp how I could actively influence
Yeah.
or affect that yet, but hopefully that's something that's part of the job.
When that's all over, there's some work to be done on the structure for Sam, I think. So
Yes.
plenty of work to do ahead.
To be clear, Half Moon Bay sued us. People talk about us suing each other.
Yeah.
We countersued, but Half Moon Bay sued us, and we're hoping it'll get resolved this summer. So.
In a positive manner. But again, I may be a Half Moon Bay resident, but
You're a district resident.
yeah.
Yes, you're in the district.
So have very vested interest in not seeing those. Any financial repercussions from that.
Yeah.
Having the best case.
Any questions from us to us?
No, I think. I mean, if I got the position, I have a million questions, but I did make sure, did a little bit of due diligence to make sure that it would be within my bandwidth and something that I thought I could. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think I could contribute fully.
Okay, great.
I do
Thank
have
you.
one more question. which I wish I had asked, maybe I didn't ask Wendy at the end, is one of the things that we have to do is look at really pages of numbers, financial numbers and so forth. We're not expected to be the ones to do the actual review. There's auditors, but we do have to pay attention to those numbers. And is that something that you feel comfortable with?
Love it.
Love it. Okay, good. Okay. Great.
That engineering background. That's
Well, it's also, yeah, but it's a little different. It's financial numbers, and looking at what's over budget, what's under budget. And it's really tempting sometimes to just zoom past that part and figure somebody else is looking at it, but it's something we all have to look at, have to pay attention to.
Don't want
Thanks.
people to slip things through.
Right.
No one's doing that.
Just understand how they're all working together. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the chance.
Okay, next we have Matt Allen.
I love your email, by the way, capture the flag at Hawthorne.
Yeah, I got in early, so I had access to unlimited creative names.
There you go. I love it.
So Matt, can you just give a brief summary of why you're interested in this?
Oh, okay. My name is Matt Allen. My family moved here in 1974. And growing up here had a great impact on my life and who I am. And I love the community. I've chosen to raise my kids in this community. And other than Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and school site council, I haven't done a whole lot to contribute to the community. So when lifelong friends told me there was a need for someone to step up and volunteer for the position, it struck me as it's about time. I've been here enjoying it for long enough. Maybe it's my turn to do some public service and help steer the decision-making in the place that I appreciate so much. So I responded to just word of mouth, having dinner with old friends, and it sounded interesting. So I'm prepared to help steer decision-making in a place that I have a lot of value for. So I'd like to think I can contribute to good decision-making.
I can start. Matt, I saw that you said in your note that you have, attended meetings and so on over the last 12 years. I thought, I don't know the name, but I
As
remember
soon
your
as I
face.
saw my back.
As soon as I saw it, I thought, I know.
It's been coming to meetings.
You've come to Parks Advisory Committee meetings and district meetings, and I think particularly around the pump track and the skate ramp.
Good memory.
Well, those were big crowds. Sometimes we filled this room, and those were two occasions. Question for you, your focus on recreation is clear. How do you feel about playing a governance role over the really non-negotiable thing we do? The Parks and Rec are like the sexy thing that is attracting a lot of people, but the sewers are non-negotiable, not discretionary. And so how do you feel about being part of the governance of that critical coastside infrastructure?
I'm very interested in learning how to do that and being a part of it. So you're right, my focus is the recreation, but I know there are other responsibilities. So I'm open to stepping into those.
Okay.
You say that you're an advocate for active recreation. You were part of the 6 years that we spent, holding what, 60 some meetings with the community. Do you have any issues with the balance? It was a really difficult task to balance active recreation and passive recreation needs of this community on that site that has unique characteristics that make some things like pickleball not work. Do you have any big issues with the balance as it worked out?
In the
For
park design.
For the park design?
I actually haven't followed the park design lately, so has it been finalized?
Yes.
It's going in for its coastal development permit.
There could be
So-
still more
There could
changes,
change,
but
right.
we have approved it to be submitted as designed
Designed.
to the county.
Then I don't even know what the final design is, so I
Okay.
suppose I should know that before I answer the question. But I definitely know about myself that I'm not just focused on what I want. That I know that there are a lot of different perspectives and goals that people in this town have. And to just focus on my agenda only and exclude people, I don't think that would be a responsible use of the leadership of this board.
And I think we did get a lot of recreation in there, but also a lot of passive.
Yeah,
Passive.
skate ramp is definitely there.
Yes. And half court
And
basketball
some, nice pathways you can ride a bike on.
and exercise things, playgrounds. Anyway, how do you feel about looking at financial numbers? Because, it's a boring part of the job, but you really need to keep an eye on it. It's part of your responsibility if you're on this board.
Yep, when I read through that agenda packet, I was really interested. But
The audit is, I'm not talking about the
Yeah,
audit.
the audit is a lot.
The audit is
Yeah.
another whole thing, but they have a whole financial statements and it's really important to be comfortable with those.
I would say I'm comfortable with the science background with numbers, and I'm interested in what makes this town work. So I'm not averse to finances or numbers.
Okay.
Do you have any question? Oh, go ahead.
Just as you noted, and you've been to some of those meetings where there are people who have a strong view on one side, who think that everybody agrees with them, and people who have an exactly opposite strong view. And the difficulty sometimes being here is you have to make decisions that are going to make somebody unhappy. And they're going to be people you run into in the grocery store or elsewhere. And so talk about your comfort level with making those kind of tough calls.
Very comfortable. I have children and
Okay.
I know how to say no to them. Not that community members would be in the same category, but teaching high school, I work with outpatient, day treatment, students with emotional disturbance. So somehow I have to balance running a classroom and accommodating their needs. So I'm very comfortable holding values. But I'm very comfortable listening to people who are having difficulty and not reacting to it emotionally. Just being able to hear them and maintain a calm demeanor. So I'm not worried about running into people who don't like what I said or decisions that we made, because I practice every day with people who may not be happy with a decision that people in authority made, but still maintain a connection to them so they don't feel resentment. So I would say that is something I have a lot of practice with.
Great. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm actually curious. I love your background and the fact that you're from here. As you think about the work around the Burnham Strip and the park and the land, are there things that are important to you that we think about as we build build the park for the community? As we think about making sure that it does carry forward something that's really like inclusive and welcoming to all? Like, are there principles or values that you carry that you think you'll bring into this work?
I feel qualified because of the historical context I have in this town. So I know what it was like in the 70s and I've seen it change over time. So one of the values and motivations for putting myself forward to serve in that seat is to try to influence and guide the recreation that we decide on so that it reflects the spirit of this town and parts that it should be, even as it changes, it should retain some of the spirit that makes it what it is.
Right. Do you have a question? Any questions for us?
I had a question that came up when you said the numbers could be a lot to one of the other
Mhm.
applicants. And you said, I read through it to prepare for the meetings. And sometimes I forget the words used, but it's a lot and you have questions.
I make notes for my questions.
So when you have questions, who do you ask?
I mean, that's part of what this public forum is for, because if I have a question reading through the pack, other people might have the same question. So generally, the questions will go to our general manager, Chuck Duffy, who would be here if not for a broken foot. Or we have usually our council lawyer is here, whose daughter's graduating from college today. So, and Hope, so the staff, Hope and Nora and Chuck and Bill, that's really where the questions go. And it's actually very supportive. So all of us learn this on the job. And sometimes it's a little daunting, but either Chuck or Bill or Hope, you pick up the phone anytime and can ask them questions. So you
Yeah,
get good coaching. Yeah.
Well,
Good to
and
hear because I don't have experience doing this kind of work, but I'm interested in it and I feel I can learn as I go.
Mhm.
And to hear that there are people that you can turn to when you have questions instead of just already knowing everything. Because I wouldn't say that I'm qualified already to sit in that chair because there a lot of questions came up.
You know, the only requirements to run for a board like this are to be over 18 and registered to vote. So people come from all kinds of different places to it, but we do depend on our staff to educate us.
All right.
Great.
That was it.
Thank
That was
you.
one of my concerns and you answered it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
And our last candidate is Will Plaxico. He is on.
Hey, good evening. On here just a minute.
Hey, Will.
Hey, hello. I apologize not to be there in person. Had a later work evening unexpected, but yeah, appreciate the consideration. It looks like I'm really glad to hear. It seems like there's several good candidates, so that's real encouraging and happy to see that. I think any number of them would be great candidates. I just wanted to participate in this and throw my name in the hat. I'm still a working professional. I think there's definitely some value in expanding the demographic a little bit on the board if possible, but I also understand there's I think it's great there's retirees that full time and definitely have more bandwidth to really dive in, I'm sure, in some ways, but at the same time I think having a little broader demographic to represent the community could be a good thing. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to throw my name in the hat. I come from my professional background. I'm an electrical engineer, but have some public policy background and have been involved in more in the electric facilities world, doing involved in electric rate activities, regulatory world in municipal and investor and utility world. So I do have some good perspective I think I can bring and enjoy some of that kind of arcane type work that I think is real similar to rate setting and how you manage different types of infrastructure, sewer infrastructure in this case. So I think that's a good thing to contribute. It was great to see the other gentleman with the engineering background throw his hat into, I think, not biased, but that's always a good thing to have another engineer on the board. When I started digging into the Picasso issues and was reaching out to, was it former board member Seaton and realized he had a great background for this. I think his professional world was wastewater. And so anyways, definitely doesn't hurt to add another name that has some good engineering background. I think that'd be beneficial. So yeah, with that, I think there's, I guess last I'd close it, showed a lot of interest in the last few months. I first actually got interested in GCSD because I was thinking it was obvious it'd be a great opportunity to develop some recreation facilities on the strip, which you guys have been after for a decade or so, I think, and had steered away from. So I think it'd be continue to enjoy helping to guide and participate in the recreational facilities, and would enjoy the core work of GCSD as well. And sorry, I should have mentioned one more thing too. I think one thing I hope I showed or demonstrated in the last few months is just the ability to bring some new perspective, but trying to keep it very collaborative and bring in some new ideas and direction. Really appreciate the board. I think listening and hearing that and taking some steps with the survey and other things to accommodate that. And I think there's a lot of good opportunity to try to push for good creative solutions to keep a broader swath of the community excited and positive about the direction of where GCSD goes. So I hope that's something I could bring in this role. That's it. Thanks.
Hi, Will. I sure hope you're not driving at the same
No, no.
time.
Pulled over now. Pulled over.
But given that, and I know you've heard some of the questions from the other candidates, do you feel that you would have the time to spend as a GCSD board member?
Sure. Yeah, no, fair question. Absolutely do. I think just, I hope I've been able to demonstrate some of the research I've done off outside of board meeting hours and sharing the content and op-eds, that kind of thing. I think that could go a long way in doing more of that. So I think it would be a stretch being a working professional and got young kids. But I think I think it's important that somebody from a different demographic can join as well. That all being said, I certainly understand if that's a concern, and I think I'll pledge to contribute my time and energy in a informal setting if the board role isn't a good fit right now as well.
I just want to say for the record, I'm not retired.
Yeah, no, I know that. No, Jen, I know that. I know that's why I say broad the demographic. And I'm super appreciative of everybody being on the board in that role. I shouldn't discriminate by any means. I just mean it's good. I think there were some views earlier on 4 or 5 months ago of just like making sure that the board really was in touch with the whole breadth of community members, day-to-day lives and everything. So that's why, representing different interests that can broaden the demographic that doesn't hurt.
So actually, my one question for you, Will, we know you as a passionate advocate for the the part of the community that have preschool age kids or kids approaching preschool. And my question for you is, how do you or can you balance that passion with the other sort of demographic groups in the community who also have needs, not to diminish the preschool needs, but who also have needs from their community and represent the whole community?
Yeah, no, sure. Great question. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Nancy, I think one thing I did early on was I pulled down demographic data for GCSD because I was skeptical of some of the numbers that were quoted, and I think and I was trying to do that to kind of understand what is the range. I think a lot of the community members felt like it was more oriented towards a senior community center rather than a true community center. And so I was trying to kind of understand the demographic and did a little research on my own. So to understand the census data that for the whole district. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a real important part. I think the preschool issue is nuanced because there's a lot of history there about the whole perspective I've tried to sell is this concept where you can go build a park and bring value to the community today while we solve a difficult problem, by time to solve a difficult problem. And so I think by bringing that the proposal on phasing, I hope that's a good demonstration of like, yeah, absolutely. The Burnham Strip is it's too good an opportunity to develop that into a great recreational facility for the community. But let's do it in a way that adds to the community, doesn't destroy some equity in the community.
Got it. Thanks.
I'll ask my numbers question. Guys, I think it's important, you know, it is, it's easy to skip that part of the packages that we get, both for Sam and here. And it really is important to be comfortable looking at balance sheets and seeing where the money's going and doing your due diligence for every meeting. How do you feel about that?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a core part. I've gotten pretty deeply into electric rates design in my professional work, for example, and so both enjoy that and yeah, absolutely understand that's a core part of the role here. And I think I'll echo. I think it was Andrew's name. One of the things I would certainly do get into this would be to better understand San Francisco. When I got involved in understanding the LAFCO background for GCSD and understood the history of the lawsuits of San Fran, that was definitely I understood more about. There's a number of parties who think there shouldn't be, just 4 different member agencies, and if there's lawsuits amongst them, and these different agencies are too small. So yeah, I'd actually really enjoy digging into that. And in addition to the month-to-month balance sheet, the core business is part of the appeal, not just the recreation activities.
Any other questions? Any questions for us, Will?
I don't. I appreciate. I think the earlier questions you answered had some insight about how much time commitment this is outside. So I appreciate Nancy and Jen's perspective there. So yeah, I think you guys have answered the earlier questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so I believe then it is now up to us to have a discussion around each of the candidates. Once we kind of reach a point where we are interested in making a nomination, we can do that. There are no more public comments at this point, and we'll take a motion after a nomination is made. So open it up to the board for conversation.
I like the idea of bringing in a different demographic. I think we have some great candidates. Thank you all for applying. I think we're very fortunate to have all of you. I think you all are credible candidates. It's going to be a hard decision.
It went from maybe just like one person to many candidates. So thank you for taking the time to express interest and to join us today. I don't know.
Well, I just want to echo that point and sort of remind everybody that we have an election every 2 years, and which is a different process to go through than this one. But we don't always have contested elections. And so it's great to see the interest from members of the community. It is a different thing to throw your hat in the ring for an election. I wanted into at the last minute this year. But so there are always going to be openings in the future. So I really appreciate everybody's interest today. I too think that it would be good to have more diversity on the board. I really, torn between, more sort of the engineering skills and more folks with kids, or school age kids to bring that perspective to the board. But I think we have, candidates that can go either way. And so I'm happy that we can select a candidate from this group.
Yeah.
I think we also at some point are going to be establishing a new Parks Advisory Committee, help with a different level
of detail,
for the
yeah.
park. And so
And rec center.
I would hope that some of these candidates might be willing to work on that as well, because I think that actually will also be a very interesting task and very helpful to this community.
I think Director Dye was on the Parks Advisory Committee for 2 years before you were on the board. I was on the committee for 3 years before I was on the board. So it's a good on-ramp as well to get used to how things work here. The Brown Act actually takes some getting used to.
Yeah, and I also would really like to thank all the candidates for coming and spending some time with us because I'm the newest member of the board. I was just elected in November. So, just going on 6 months now and really just, continuing to get up to speed. And, you don't have to be an expert on everything. Obviously, having the will to learn and to listen, which is really the most important thing, to, listen to the community and is, really important. So I also agree on the diversity. I also like having different aspects of our district represented as well, which I think is also plus. So again, thank you all so much. And I really hope that with these additional committees and help that we continually need, that you will come back.
Okay, so I'm gonna push us to have hard conversations because I think otherwise we will sit here and say nice things
Yeah.
for the next 45 to 60 minutes. So let's go by each candidate and let's do a framework. We'll say things that we are excited about for the candidate and things that maybe we have some reservations or concerns about the candidate. So let's go through each of them and then we will kind of see where we net out. Maybe it will become obvious through that conversation where we're leaning. But we'll take stock at that point. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with Wendy. Things that we are excited or optimistic about as it relates to Wendy as a candidate.
I think Wendy has great energy. She is, very much interested in serving on the board. And I think as a realtor, you have to have a ton of energy in general. So I like that she understands the process, has gone through, somewhat similar to you, Jen, buying a lot, building a house, kind of some of the processes that some of us don't really think about. So those are some of the pros that I see with Wendy. Cons
Wait,
would,
we're not there yet.
okay,
We're just doing pros and they're not cons, they're concerns or reservations.
concerns, okay.
Okay, so pros, I have some pros. I would say, I think I appreciate that Wendy is a mother of younger children. I think having that diversity and representation, I do very strongly believe that we need to skew a bit younger as we can on this board, respectfully. I think part of the conversations we've had over these last, 2 years that I've been, almost 3 years on the board, are that, we're not in touch with the demographic of the community. And I think having someone that represents school age children and having school age children is a big plus. And I also think being a realtor is more than just a difficult job. I think she's connected to our community in a way that no one else is on the board, and understanding what people are seeking as they're coming and considering to move to this community, why they choose this community to invest in and move their families here. So I think she brings a perspective also that we don't necessarily have. So I would say those are my two pros for her.
I'm great.
Mine are similar. Changes the demographic, brings a parent of kids currently in school on the board, and just the general interest in community service and giving back to the community.
I agree.
Okay. Anything that we're concerned about?
Just on the general background of skills versus the engineering type skills. I think Wendy has sort of very general skills, and I think could learn the ropes. But Wendy is one I thought that might be, the parks might be a good start, the advisory committee, to sort of get an on-ramp and see more of the range of decisions that come our way.
So she just hasn't spent a lot of time on these issues. She's new, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's a little bit of a reservation.
But of this board, how many of us spent time on these issues before we were on the board? Okay, well, okay, I didn't. And here I sit, so I'm just saying, okay. So,
Well, you did a bunch of studying when you were running and so forth.
oh, yeah. But I mean, I wasn't years and, I wasn't like reading every agenda and watching every meeting and doing all that stuff.
No, I wasn't. Yeah, anyway. Just a comment.
Yeah, I just think to your point earlier that I think you raised the question that was asked or answered the question that was asked, like. I guess I'm saying this for all the candidates, I guess this isn't just as particular to Wendy. I don't have a calibration of reasonable expectation that people are coming into this conversation prepared to like being deeply well versed. Like to your point, you said we learn as we go.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the nature of the work here is that we are learning. So I reasonably didn't have an expectation that anybody coming here tonight was really going to be able to say with confidence that they have deep expertise in the work that we do.
No,
here.
I wasn't expecting that either.
Yeah,
Me neither. That's not what.
well,
I'm
that's what I
saying.
was asking.
Yeah.
I'm saying like how many of us before we became board members actually really
Yeah.
understood?
The sort of general business skills is
Yeah,
a good basic.
yeah, that's all.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything else to add on concerns?
Well, I didn't, it wasn't really a con. I was just thinking of more having a diverse board, that's all. So
Not women, not all women, you're saying.
sort of, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but.
It was a bit unusual
I
while
think
it
she has
lasted.
real skills that would be very helpful.
Yeah, I
think,
agree. I
of course,
absolutely.
yeah. She-
It's okay, we're evaluating candidates, y'all. We have to evaluate. All right, Anthony, next.
I really like Anthony's mechanical skills and interest in wastewater treatment plants and how they work. By the way, Sam has open houses. You can go and get a tour at least once a month. And it is actually very interesting. Somebody with a biology degree. I think it is very interesting. And so I think the professional experience is relevant. The diversity in that it's somebody who lives in Miramar and brings outside the El Granada centric point of view is useful. I have to think because Roosevelt, your street is in the city limits of Half Moon Bay, which means it's in the district's sewer district, but not in the Parks and Rec district. So that doesn't mean you can't vote on Parks and Rec stuff because we have to pay Half Moon Bay for what we spend on Parks and Rec stuff. But yeah, the parts of the city are not officially within the Parks and Rec district. That doesn't really faze me. It's just it's interesting. I thought of somebody who's, within the district but outside that border.
Is that a concern?
I don't think it's a concern. It's just an observation. I don't think it matters, Chuck, for voting on anything. He's shaking his head.
You're muted.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, thank you. I was just this is the sort of question we asked Chuck.
In the box.
I like the fact that he talked about his collaborative skills and working together with others. And trying to get the big picture of projects.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. I've worked with, in my own business background, worked with a lot of distinguished engineers, understand how they, the strength in their collaboration with working with a variety of different people. I also too do very much like that he's interested in infrastructure. I think infrastructure, now that I've been to a few SAM board meetings, really, that really hits home when you go to these meetings and you really talk about the issues that's going on with the infrastructure on the coast and how important it is and how we all make a difference. So I think that is also a great plus.
Concerns?
I didn't really have any concerns.
No concerns.
Okay. I will say, I do think, again, it's similarly another sort of retiree sort of demographic. I do think that this is an important thing to consider. That we, I think I've been very consistent in my positioning and all the things we've been doing to really, as a board, represent this community. And, I don't think right now we do, given the demographic of our board. And so I do think that this is like something to consider as a concern. Okay. Matt Allen.
I really like Matt's deep roots in the community, and I did recognize him as somebody who has been engaged with the district and its work, even without being, a board member or a Parks Advisory Committee member. He does show up at meetings. He does advocate for his demographic in the community, and I think has taken the time to be here. I think his description of listening to people who may have very strong views or very emotional views without taking it personally and just being able to integrate that is, at times has been a very important skill to have here when we get to things that are, hot buttons for the community. So I felt very positive about Matt as a candidate.
I like his skills working with students. And I like the fact that, again, he has younger kids. I liked his science, that he talked about his science background and how that makes him able to do this. I definitely have seen him at these meetings and seen how engaged he's been. I think he'd be a really good candidate.
Yeah, I also think Matt's, I think he's an excellent candidate. He's especially, having deep roots in the community is great. He's seen a lot of change over the years, and I think that we'll be continuing to deal with more change. So I do also very much like the fact that he's a teacher. He's currently working. He solves maybe that demographic issue, Jen. But not that there's anything wrong with being retired.
Listen, I'm looking forward to it. Someone wants to retire.
I work as hard as are harder now.
Oh, I'm
I know.
sure.
I think I know, but anyway, yeah, so I think all of that's a plus. And no concerns.
Yeah, I think I would just add a little bit to this. I really love specifically in your background, Matt, you didn't talk about it, but your wildlife field nature experience, your indigenous experience, as an educator, particularly with children or trouble, folks with challenges. I think just the calm nature that you bring to this environment already, I was like very impressed by. I think you will bring also, this is a community that's very proud, and people that have lived here for generations feel very strongly. I actually think that when we talk about the 25% that come out and participate, a good percentage of those who don't are actually people who live here or lived here for decades and are disillusioned with some of the direction that we're headed in and the decisions we're making. And I think having someone like Matt on the board might actually be a testament to a place where they could come speak and be heard, and have someone that would listen to them and understand their perspective. And be a channel for them in a way that maybe we don't represent. So I think there's a lot of nuance to your background and your experience in this community that would bring a lot of richness to the board. And I appreciate your candor that, there's stuff to learn. So that was great. I don't have any concerns either. Any concerns? Nope. Okay, great. So I don't know that we're clear on a candidate. That's
Yeah, Will.
Oh, Will, sorry, Will's not in this one. In the room. Will, I apologize. Will on as our final one.
Well, Will, as usually, brings a lot of energy.
Lots of
Yeah.
energy.
And I didn't know anything today before this packet about, Will, about your background
Yeah.
and your skill set, which I think is interesting and relevant. And so I know that, Will can be passionate about the causes that he goes for. I also know that he does a lot of homework, as he noted, and is very data focused and bringing data to support his position. So I think we've seen that in action.
Yeah, and I've worked with Will on the survey. He helped provide perspective and research and data to help inform the development of the survey that when we were doing the ad hoc. And I found that he was very respectful, like very generous with his time and his resources. I didn't feel like he was kind of push the agenda down. It was more like, here, let me provide some data and information. So I appreciated that that tension in a respectful way.
I had actually a lot of offline one-to-one back and forth with Will and found, good dialogue back and forth.
I think, as we said, for Anthony, the engineering background is a plus, and I like the fact that he also has some policy background. And clearly is very good at doing research and getting the details of things.
Yeah. Concerns?
I think that for me, it's a bit of the time and the flexibility. And I think Will himself said, if we're going to do, the Parks Advisory Committee, maybe that's a more flexible place for him to start to engage.
Yeah.
So that's just my one concern.
I mean, I understand life be lifing, but I think for me, the fact that he's not here is a non-starter. Like, we just had a meeting last month
About being
about
here in
being
person.
here in
right.
person, and so unfortunately, I think like that's like to eliminate him from my perspective.
Agree.
Any other concerns? Robert, do you have any thoughts? All right, so
Nomination
any
time?
nominations?
I would like to nominate Matt. I mean, I was really between Matt and Anthony going back and forth, but I think Matt brings something that this board doesn't have. And I think can bring a lot of the community with him, as Jen noted.
I would support that.
Is that
I feel like Anthony and Wendy and Will, but I agree about this not being able to make it to the meeting, but I think they're both would be good candidates, but I think Matt just brings a couple extra components that would be really valuable for this board.
is that a formal second her nomination?
Yes,
Okay.
please just a second.
All right. So we have a nomination and second.
Do we have any other nominations?
Yeah, I think we do additional nominations first. Chuck, is that?
Yes, you do them all at once. Yeah, the nominations.
I would nominate Wendy. Just do I have to say why? Yes, I think she would be a great addition too. I think just in terms of, I am clearly biased towards a younger demographic with children, so I will say that. And so I think that is something that is of interest for the board. And so I think she brings the right spirit. I think she brings the right connection. I think she brings a set of perspective, like I said, about real estate and like this market and understanding who's coming here and why, and that people have interest. She's plugged into people in a way that we aren't. So I think that's interesting as well. So those are my reasons. But also support that. So be happy.
Any other nominations?
Oh,
No,
Good.
not for me.
Okay, so Jen, so you can
All
call
right,
the
so call
Yeah.
a vote?
question.
we don't really need seconds, do we?
No,
Nomination.
so we just call the vote for.
Yeah, call the vote first for the nomination for Matt Allen.
Do you want to do it as a roll call then?
Yeah.
Okay, so this first vote then is for Matt, Director Bowles,
Aye.
Director Dye,
Yes,
Director Randall,
Well, I mean, because I nominated Wendy.
and Director Marsh.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a 3-1. So then I assume we don't hold the second.
Right.
You don't pull the second because, yeah,
and I really hope the other candidates will consider, watch for the Parks Advisory Committee. I think you'd enjoy it. It would give you some of the same satisfaction. And you'd be performing a really valuable service for this community. And you're great. So sorry.
Yeah.
We could
Yeah. Thank you so
expand the board. Well,
If anybody is thinking of running in the next election, do call and
Yeah.
any of us can coach you through the process. You put a lot of miles on your sneakers walking around the community, but it's a valuable experience, isn't it, Wanda?
Yes, it is.
Amazing. All right, well, with that, then you're in, Matt, so
And-
you have to actually stay and take the oath of the office and you join our meeting.
Okay.
Have a
Yeah.
seat.
Yes.
And then there's a resolution.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much.
So thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you,
Thank you.
Will. Oh, Will's
Thank
gone
you,
already.
Will.
Where
So
to next?
Right here.
right here. So
You have a
as
spot.
you take your seat, we're going to have a resolution. So the resolution is appointing the director to fill a vacancy on the board. Do I read the resolution?
We can just read the title.
Okay,
And-
on the board of directors of the Granada Community Services District. So we are appointing, yeah,
Oh,
Matt Allen to the role, the vacancy. Do I have any?
we have to make a motion to
Yeah,
pass the
make a motion,
resolution.
yes.
So moved.
Second.
Can we roll call?
Director Bowles,
Yes.
Director Dye,
Aye.
Director Randall,
Aye.
and Director March.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. 4-0, resolution is passed. And with that, Matt, you will read the oath of office.
The indented part there in the middle.
Yeah, just that indented.
You could tell I was looking at the top of the page. Give me a few seconds. And I, Matt Allen, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. I declare under penalty of perjury of the laws of the State of California that the foregoing is true and correct. Dated May 15th, 2025.
Okay.
Brad, welcome.
And I think
Welcome.
it's so interesting that you swear,
To the
not to do a
Constitution.
good job as a board member. You swear to the Constitution of the United States. And that's the
Yeah.
same oath that senators and
Yeah.
congressmen take. It's really
Well,
kind of chokes you up,
It does. Both the United States and the state of California. Yeah.
Isn't it cool?
It's really cool. Right.
Great. Well,
you're
welcome
in now.
now.
Welcome, Matt.
I think Matt wants to,
Oh,
can you look at,
he wants to take a photo of you.
smile?
It's for the newspaper.
Yeah. Happen to be
Thank
reviewed.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashton.
All right, so then we'll move on to our second agenda item, which is the many pages audited financial statement for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024.
Unfortunately, that only comes once a year.
Yeah.
And we've got our auditor here via Zoom tonight. And I'll
Oh,
just
there he
say,
is.
yeah, I'll just say generally what was in my agenda memo. The audits blend the assessment district now with the general district, with the parks and rec and the sewer functions. So they're a little tougher to read than they used to be. It's an interesting GASB decision that I've had conversations with a lot of people about, but so because it just doesn't make it as clear to people reading the audit on the district's financials, but that is what it is. So and so with that, I'll turn it over to our auditor. He's got a short PowerPoint presentation that I think Hope's going to put on the screen.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Fantastic. I loved watching the democracy in action there. It was very enjoyable. It was, and
Do
congratulations.
it all in public.
It was
but-
very awkward, yes.
Yeah.
Well, let me go ahead and share my screen.
I'm happy to do it too, if you would like. I mean, it's up to you, but then you can advance your own slides.
Okay, let me see if I can do this. Okay. I'm having to move screens around and all that, so.
Is it possible? Presentation?
So can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let me try one more thing here. See if I can make it larger.
There might be like a presentation mode.
Presentation.
Slideshow mode, yeah.
Yeah.
To the left.
And Matt, I had questions and I called Chuck and he talked me through.
There we go.
Yeah.
Does
So,
that look better?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so let me go ahead and go back. Once again, thank you so much for having me. My name is Chris Brown with Brown and Company CPAs, and we're going to go ahead and go over the results of the June 30th, 2024 audit. And just a little background here. The audit was performed in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America. Basically, there's a number of agencies that oversee the process. All auditors must follow those procedures. It's a standard that must be upheld when conducting an audit. As far as the process itself, we initially were assessing the internal controls of the district. We're doing tests of the various cycles, accounting cycles within your financials. Things like your payroll cycle, your purchasing and disbursements, and such. And there's a number of them. And we test a number of items related to those cycles. And from the results of those tests, we design an audit program, which is basically a guide to what we're going to look at and how we're going to look at, and assess risk for the various areas within the financial statements. So like the cash area, the receivables, on and on and on. So that's kind of the process. When we go into the final field work after your year end, we're basically agreeing the balances to the supporting documentation and of course running the tests that our audit programs require. And in addition to that, we're performing analysis of the relationships within the financials themselves. You have movement within your balance sheet or your statement of net position is what it's really called. We should see a corresponding movement in other areas of the financials as well. If we have any questions, of course, we inquire. But that's kind of the process. It spans over many, many months. It's a big process, hundreds of hours involved. Financial statement and a management report are the results of the audit. So that's kind of the big picture of what we're doing. With regard to the financial statements, within the financial statements is the auditor's opinion. And we are providing you an unmodified opinion, which is good. That means we didn't have to change it to account for something that was odd or something, along that line. So we're providing you an unmodified opinion. This isn't worded exactly as it is in the financial report, but it's pretty darn close. And it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of Granada Community Services District as of June 30, 2024. So congratulations on a clean opinion. The other document report that comes out of it is the management report, and it is directed towards our boss, really. It says management report, but it's really to a large degree focused towards the board of directors. You are my boss. It is to you that we answer to when we're conducting the audit and report on it. Basically, the management report gives us an opportunity to outline any areas that we feel that need to be brought to your attention. If there are any difficulties or deviations from accounting standards, it gives us an opportunity to talk to you about it in this document. In reality, if we did have an issue, we would have come to you a long time ago. We wouldn't wait to this point and hit you with it. But basically, that's what this document does. It's our report to you, and I'm happy to say there were no reportable items. So congratulations on that. Pretty darn clean. So let's go ahead and move into financial results. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but we'll just kind of go over the higher level here. This is the condensed statements of net position, and this is, as it says, it's condensed. This is at the front of the financial statement itself in what's called management's discussion and analysis. And that portion of the financial statement is the area that gives the district, a chance to basically explain what happened, kind of at a higher level, but in a condensed manner. And that's what this is. So we took the table out of the financial statements. You'll see this exact table in the financial statements. And it's 2024, 2023. 2023 was restated to correct, what was it? I think it had to do with a compensated absences item that needed to be reclassified in periods. So basically moving everything into the right pot, you might say. But we're concerned more with 2024, but we'll compare it to 2023. And we can see that the total assets increased approximately 753,000. Deferred outflows of resources, this line item right here, it has to do with pension obligations. There are actuarial studies done that basically says that your liability is X amount in a given year, and deferred outflows of resources and conversely deferred inflows of resources are kind of a holding place for payments to be applied to it and credits to be applied to it in future years. That's what deferred inflows and outflows are all about. It'll be applying amounts to that liability in future years as time goes forward. It's a forward-looking area there. Liabilities, total liabilities went down approximately 136,000 and change. Net position, this area down here, it's kind of like a net worth area. It's kind of like what's the value, your assets minus your liabilities, broken into three constituent parts. What you've invested in capital assets. So what that represents is amounts that the district has invested in capital assets, hard assets, things in the ground, other investments, computers, all that sort of stuff, less depreciation. Restricted represents amounts of money that are set aside to pay certain obligations required by a third party. So if you have debt and there's a requirement in the covenants for the debt that X amount of money will be available to pay that goes into it as well. Also, monies that are set aside or contributed for construction purposes, that would be in the restricted line item as well. And you can see it's pretty flat. Unrestricted is what's left over. It doesn't represent cash. There again, it's a net worth kind of calculation of assets minus your liabilities, minus what you've invested in your capital assets and what's being held for restricted purposes. This is what's left over. And we can see it's 9,691,000, an increase of 1.1 million from the prior year. Kind of a sideline, and I've mentioned this in the past. I don't know if you recall this, but when I'm doing an analysis of a financial statement, I'm looking at trends, I tend to like to see, and I don't want to make too much of this, but this is just an easy one to identify. I like to typically see an increase in that number year after year. It doesn't always happen. There's sometimes it's going to go down for whatever reason, but what that tells you is that there's a balance between your rate structure, or more of a balance. If I say there's a balance, that makes it sound it's dead on and it's right, but there's more of a balance in your rate structure or your revenues to expenses, which is a good thing. So we seeing that improvement from year to year. It also gives the organization a chance to, at times, build reserves. Not always, but just kind of in concept. So there again, seeing that improvement there always makes me feel a little bit warmer inside. So what we have here, okay, this is my cheat sheet. So I'm going to go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next slide real quick, and then I'll probably peel back to that one. Okay, so this is the condensed statements of revenues and expenses and changes in net position. What this is it's your profit and loss statement, you might say. Again, 2 years presented, we show the change, and things are aggregated, okay? So all the operating revenue accounts are grouped into one line item here. You'll see further in the financial statement, you'll see more detailed financial statement. If I was to show you that right now, we'd be here for 3 hours. I don't think you want that right now. But we show it by operating and non-operating. Operating revenues are essentially what you do for a living, providing the services that is the mandate of the organization. So we have sewer, we've got the assessments and things like that that go into it. Non-operating ancillary items are going to be taxes and things like that. You're not in the business of taxes. It's an ancillary, it's a non-operating item. Expenses, we only have operating expenses here, but we can see that, total revenue, or let me do this. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. When you do the math of revenues less the expenses, we see a change in net position here. This is kind of like your net income, and we can see that it was 899,462, which is higher than the prior year. In the prior year, it was that 523. We see that this year is an improvement of 375,000 and change. Okay. So again, financial results for the year, net position, it increased by the 899,000 to the 18,877,000, basically just from continuing operations. When we're looking at your revenue, total revenues decreased by the 433,000 and change, primarily due to operating revenues. They actually increased 304,000 due to increases of 431,000 in sewer service charges, offset by a decrease of 127,000 in connection fees. And I'll go to the narrative in just a second here. Non-operating revenues, you can see that it actually decreased there by that 737,000, primarily due to decreases of 450,000 in assessment district revenues, which is talking about taxes, assessments being non-operating. 272,000 in investment in sewer authority mid-coast side. So there was a less of a return on that investment there. Expenses, we can see total expenses decreased by 809,000 right there. Operating expenses decreased by 775,000 from the prior year, primarily due to a decrease of 690,000 in assessment district administrative and general expenses, and 110,000 in parks and recreation expenses, 34,000 in administrative and general expenses, 33,000 in infrastructure, and offset by some increases in sewage administration. So we're looking at the table here. I'm going to go ahead and back up one here and go to this narrative that I was just reading off of. So just kind of highlight, we just noted that your net position increased by 899,000. Your total revenues decreased by the 433,000. Of that, operating revenues increased by that 304,000 from the items that we noted here, sewer service charges and connection fees. Non-operating revenues decreased by that 737,000 due to that 450,000 assessment district revenues and 272,000 investment sewer authority. Here again, operating expenses, I'll just jump down here, decreased by that 775,000, primarily due to decrease of that 690,000 assessment district administrative, and of course the parks and recreation. So I just kind of threw a lot of numbers at you, and I was very heartened to hear as part of the discussion before I came on, as far as understanding financial statements. So it hardens me that that is a real consideration that is being paid attention to. It's very important to have a real grasp of the financials. Now, of course, it's late in the game right now. We're already looking at going into the next year, but it's good to have a good sense of what the financials are. As a side note, and I don't have a slide for this, but a recommendation for anybody, board members, is take a look at, of course, take a look at, the statements of revenues, but also take a look at the cash flow statements. There again, I don't have a slide here. It's just a recommendation. So when you get the report and you're looking at it, if you look at the statement of cash flows, it really gives you a sense of, okay, what's really coming in. we can look at balance sheets and P&L statements, and it's kind of hard to pull it out. But if you look at the statement of cash flows, you can look at it and you can say, oh, okay, we brought in X dollars for this. We brought in X dollars for this. We spent X dollars for this. And these are in actual dollars. Give you a very good idea of what went in, what came in, and what went out. And kind of looking at the organization as a business, what effect it had on your cash. Having, cash is kind of king, and it helps you build that infrastructure you've been talking about, the community, the playgrounds and such. So I would recommend that you take a look at that if you're not already doing it. So I probably took longer than you wanted me to, but kind of recap. The audit went well. We provided you with an unmodified opinion, clean opinion. We did not identify material weakness in your internal controls. That was in that management report that I mentioned. And we see the results of your operations here. And with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And to Chris's point, board, on page 47 of our agenda is that statement of cash flows. And that's actually what I look at as well, because, I live in the cash world. There's depreciation and other non-cash items, but that's kind of what I look at for an audit, to Chris's point.
I really appreciated actually the management discussion and analysis. You can sort of go cross-eyed reading an audit and all the details, but that was kind of 4 succinct pages that first of all, you like to hear clean audit right up front, but that I thought was just a good reference pages. I agree with the cash flow pages.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very, very clear and easy to understand.
And thank you to the good work that the team does, that we got.
Yeah,
the great
thank you,
audit
Chuck and
back.
Hope.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Now, we don't
Thanks.
approve the audit, we accept it, right? We have to
You
vote.
approve and accept the audit, so someone's got to make a
Are we
motion.
approving it? I thought we just accepted it.
It's semantics, I think, at this point. We've always approved it, but
Okay.
Okay.
it doesn't become a final audit till your board approves it. As Chris pointed out, he works for you all.
Yeah.
So I move that we approve the audited district financial statements for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024.
I second.
Great, can we have a roll call, please?
We can, or you can call the vote and you can all say aye because you're all in the room.
Oh, look at that.
I just have to have a roll call on everything.
Can we call a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it.
When somebody was on Zoom of a board member, we always have to have a roll call, which we don't allow anymore. Unless you're
Well,
out of
unless you
town.
have, yeah, unless you have a town.
Yeah, and Jen, you say all in favor and then all opposed.
Oh, I have to say all opposed, even though we all said
Just
aye?
because you can't hear people all at once.
Okay, all opposed. No opposed.
All right, the audit has been accepted and approved.
Hey, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you
Chris.
very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, well, look at that. So exciting.
Saving so much time.
Next agenda item, parks and recreation activities.
Okay, so just a couple recaps. We did have the recycling event and there were 154 customers. We did do the paper shredding, which was very well received, but we didn't get numbers on that. But from what Recology told me, people were very happy about it. We had an excellent egg hunt at Quarry Park and about 150 kids there, and it was great.
You went from 50 last year to 150 this year.
Yeah,
Oh,
and we
my.
kind of figured that was gonna happen, and I expect 300 next year. We are gonna make a point of trying to schedule it at the same time and day as the big one that happens in Half Moon Bay though. Because that's the Half Moon Bay one, and this one's kind of intended for this community, so we're gonna try and do it at the same time to keep it split.
Yeah.
Because the people that came to ours really appreciate that it is in El Granada, it's small. We, use the biodegradable eggs, it's a plastic-free event, like we really make a lot of effort to make it specific and sort of have some personality for El Granada. So we're gonna keep up with that. We didn't have any dogs dress up. So our dog costume contest, we're gonna try again next year. It'll take off eventually.
Well, you saw the elementary schools have it.
Yes,
as a
so El
fundraiser.
Granada Elementary is gonna be having an event with a dog costume contest. They're even having a contest like who looks most like their dog, which I think is really funny.
I'm a judge.
Are you a judge?
I'm a judge, yeah.
Great.
So please, and roll your dogs, tell your neighbors.
Yeah.
Also, I think I asked, I know this is sort of something, but I forwarded the post. Did we post that, repost there?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes,
Okay.
we did. And I did have the park plan out at that event as well and talked to a number of people about the park and everybody was very excited. I got a lot of when's it gonna happen questions as I usually do when I take that poster out. We had our last wellness series that we did, which was a mindfulness one. It was a little less well attended than the other ones. It seems like people really like the sound bowls. So we'll probably do that again. And then Director Dye led the nature walk in Quarry Park.
I don't know, 15, maybe, very enthusiastic people. We had a lovely walk. It was a beautiful
Nice.
day, lots of native wildflowers.
Excellent. We're still doing the computer tutoring. I was talking to Director Bowles today that we might be doing some rescheduling on that. It hasn't taken off quite as much as we're hoping, but I think it will eventually. It just takes some time.
Right.
Bookmobile visits are still happening. And then our next recycling day with Recology will be July 19th.
Great.
And I just want to say, I still,
Shredding as well, excuse me.
Sorry, no.
Shredding as well, or
No,
just,
no shredding. We'll do that once a year, I think,
Okay.
going forward.
I enjoyed that very much.
Did you? Okay, good.
Doing that close to tax time is good too. All the
That's-
full tax returns.
That is a good point. Yeah, so I think we'll stick with sort of Earth Day, Tax Day, all those things, and just do the shredding once.
So it's June.
It'll be July 19th for the next recycling day.
Okay.
And the shredding, it's something we could consider doing more often. Maybe we could do it twice a year. It's not that expensive to add that, but it does have to be planned fairly far in advance. So,
and I just want to say that I still like the idea, people seem to like the idea of a monthly walk. And I don't want to do them all. I mean, I don't mind, but I mean, it'd be really nice if we could reach out into the community and find some other people to do it. Though if we're stuck, I was talking to people and I want to follow Deer Creek.
yeah.
So start at the top and walk all the way down. And I think people would like that. So maybe
Oh, that
in
was-
July.
That was a fun one.
I'm traveling. Yeah, it was a long time ago that it was done and I think it could be really interesting. And maybe I could get the RCD to give us some background on it. So maybe that's something to think about putting on the calendar.
Yeah, and I have connected with Suzanne Elliott.
Oh, good.
So, and she would like to do something. So I just need to talk to her about the logistics of that.
She's
'cause she
the
had point
edible and
charge.
medicinal plants lady.
Yeah.
You know what? I think
That
they
would
were
be
in the
awesome.
park the same day. There was a plant, edible plant or whatever it is, walk going on at the same time. And we had the two groups and they're like, which group are you? And then someone showed up and said, I was in the wrong group. So it was fun. Yeah, no, I like the idea. Let's have more activities with people here.
Yeah.
So,
And then we met this week with the county for the park coastal development permit application. They are going to require that we do another public workshop. They had sort of indicated in the past that we wouldn't need to do that again because we've done so many meetings, but as part of their pre-approval process, they want us to do another workshop. So we're working on getting the pre-application in for the pre-approval to then be able to actually put in our application for the CDP. So that should be happening within the next week or so.
Is the workshop just for general feedback or is there another specific purpose?
It is for general feedback, because we've sort of done things a little bit out of order by having all those meetings in the past.
Yeah.
Counties used to being the one in charge of doing the outreach for the MND and those sorts of things. And so it's a little out of order for them. So it will be general feedback, but it's also an opportunity. They will send out referrals to a lot of the other agencies like Harbor District, MCC, those types of groups. And so they will also have the opportunity to come to that meeting.
So Director Dye had the idea of having a meet your park day.
Yes.
Maybe that can,
yeah,
um.
let's get it on the
do both
calendar. I
with
think
the-
it would
the
be
same
great.
event.
I think that would be the perfect opportunity to kind of relaunch and talk
Yeah.
about.
We definitely should get these on big boards.
Yeah.
Is that scheduled already?
It's not scheduled yet. No, as soon as we get that scheduled, I'll let you know. But there's also a 30-day comment period for those agencies that happens sort of, we're trying to figure out if we can kind of do those two things in parallel, maybe launch the 30 days and have that meeting happen during that 30-day period. But the 30-day comment period is for those agencies to comment. And then there has to be a 15-day notice for that public workshop. So we're just sort of working out how that's going to work scheduling wise.
Great. So we'll have it by, do you think by next month we'll know?
We'll know when it's, I think we should be able to get to that point where we at least know when it's going to be scheduled within the next month.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
And Hope, do you want to bring up the two Seans we met with?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So KCRH reached out to Sean Avent, who's with the Sun Ecological Systems, and he is going to assist with the regulatory agency permitting. So, the Army Corps of Engineers, Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the Fish and Wildlife. He has a lot of experience doing those sorts of permits. And so he is working under KCRH to sort of bring that part of it along while KCRH works on that CDP application part. And then this week, Chuck and I met with Sean Rose, who is with Rose Engineering. He was the head of public works at Woodside for many years, has done a lot of different projects.
He's the guy we met at the fire station.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
He's doing the fire stations project to develop their south lot. We're going to turn it to a demonstration garden. He's also working in Pacifica. So we reached out to him as a potential project manager when we get to this next phase where we need to start talking about the phasing, the financing, and all of those sorts of steps. So we had a preliminary meeting with him. He's going to send us some information so that we can bring that back to the board to review and
He made a good first impression. He's
yeah.
very personable.
I did a little research on him. He's also doing a big project for CCAG with multiple counties and agencies. So he's very in tune with San Mateo County, with land use, all those issues. He already knows the people that we're working with the county, Shonda Singh and Summer Burleson. He's got good relationships with both of them. So.
And he's ex-county, I believe, right?
We think so.
I think you mentioned it in the,
Yeah.
so.
And for those permits, those other permits, the RCD is being looped into it, right?
Yes,
'Cause
yes.
they're-
So RCD, part of our, part of the new scope of work with RCD is that they're going to be involved in consulting with, with KCRH and
Good.
with Sean Avent
Great.
to move those along.
Have a team going here.
It feels like activity. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Any comments from the public or any vote or the public anymore?
No.
No comments from
No
Michelle.
comments from Michelle, yeah. Any other comments for the board?
No, thanks. Good work.
All right, yeah, lots of great stuff. Thanks,
Exciting.
Hope. I feel like it was not that long ago, we didn't have as many activities happening. It's nice to have so many things happening in the community. So thank you for all your work.
We do tend to kind of slow down in the summer. So just forewarning that next month there may not be much of a list. I find that when people start going out of town for vacations and things, it just we end up with not enough people to make it feel like it was worth the effort that went into it. So we'll promote everybody else's stuff, but I think we'll probably slow down a bit.
Great. All right, we don't have any actionable items here. Oh, do you have something? Oh, okay. All right, so we'll move on. Engineers report.
John provided his report. Does anyone have any questions? Probably the big issue on that is the Sam's Montero force main. The work's continuing on that, and they're going to get to some point in time. They're doing aerial surveying now, so they get to design, environmental review, and permitting, and then eventually, probably the beginning of next year, they'll get some pricing coming in. So that's the big one. And then we're planning, once we pass our budget in June, we're planning on our CIP, starting our project.
Chuck, on the big wave connection, it's hard to tell reading it. Is there a problem there, or is it just a matter of timing? They're not far enough along to do the CCTV of the pipe and clear out the construction stuff.
That's been a struggle, as you all know, kind of working with that. So they're kind of disjointed over there. So I don't know if you all remember, but basically we had sewers on site, public GCSD mains on site. And by the time we were done with the project, we decided that our sewer main in Airport Road there was the last of the true GCSD public stuff. So they put in all that private sewer on their site and we just requested CCTVing of it and whatnot, just to make sure bad stuff doesn't come down our lines and things like that.
And it's also, it's plugged because of the, there's potentially construction debris that falls in and things like that.
Yeah,
They
and
also.
Yeah, that's standard operating procedure, because what happens is on a construction site, as you can imagine, they throw everything in the kitchen sink into the sewers. And we actually just had a blockage down here at one of our districts because they poured the pool plaster into the sewer. So that did not go well, right? So what I require is a plug in our manhole. And then once they open up their system, our guys block the other end and take out any debris that comes out of it, our guys being Sam.
And they also have an outstanding engineering fee that they're going to be required to pay before we let them unplug it.
Okay. Wow. All right, any questions for the engineer report? All right. Seeing as there are none, we'll move on to Sam report.
Well, Wanda did a great job.
Thank you.
2 weeks in a row. Thank you.
When we said earlier that usually people don't do it in their first year, but Wanda's
He subbed for me.
she subbed for 2 weeks in her first year, so she's a pro now.
Well, and Jenny did a magnificent job subbing earlier
Yeah.
too. So, sometimes
Yeah.
you just got to do it.
Just dive in.
I learned a lot. I have to say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
At the one before last, we had the report on the first flush program where they go collect all the creeks and, all of the creeks on the coast side are contaminated with E. coli and coliform bacteria, including ours. So, it is what it is. And of course, that's the worst case scenario because it's the first big rain that flushes everything into the streams. So,
Is it?
um,
What's it? Historically, it's number one is bovine E. coli.
they will not specify. They say that all of them, the horse stables factor in, dogs factor in, human homeless
No,
encampments
that's not the
factor in.
DNA come out.
No, they have tried to do it. If you try to pin them down, as I did in the meeting, they're like, we really can't tell. So.
Where do they take the samples?
They take them, not at the ocean, up a little ways, wherever they can get access to the stream, as close, I think, close to the outflow into the ocean as they can get.
So they had a whole map and there was 15?
Yeah, a
sites?
bunch
So
of
there's
them.
15 or 20 sites. that
Yeah.
they met. Yeah.
So they go from way north to way south, and some are really bad and some are not so bad.
How long does it take to do it,
I think it just takes a couple hours, and evidently everybody has a good time getting up in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
and then-
Derek has done it.
It's a lot of volunteers.
Yeah, it's all
Uh,
volunteer, pretty much.
Got it. So it's all sort of like all at once. Everyone's doing it across these 15 sites.
Yeah, they give you the
They do
call
it.
that this is the day, get up at 4 a.m. and go out and do your collection.
Interesting.
And the sewer authority does pay part of the cost of that.
Nice.
So, and then this last one, we had the report on the progress of the Montero Force Main. And then the only other thing was that Half Moon Bay is now protesting the allocation of usage at the plant. And so they are now paying under protest to say, we're paying 20% and we used to pay 30%.
Right.
They are protesting, they're questioning that, but evidently there are a number of issues around the basis for their claims. But it's
the latest
it's
attempt at cost
worrying.
shifting.
It's worrying because they already have sued us once. This is the kind of thing that could lead to a second one, which is the last thing we need. So let's hope that they will start working with the other agencies and SAM to try to get some whatever answers they need to solve this. And then they were talking about I&I infiltration at the plant, which doesn't make any sense at all because everything's already measured by the time it gets to the plant and there's nothing to do I in the plant. So it's all very mysterious.
This was the subject of the volatile general managers meeting a few weeks ago, wasn't it, Chuck?
Yes. There were many subjects, but yeah, there's a lot of accusations flying from the north to the south and maybe from the south to the north.
So
We managed to stay out of it, so that was good.
it's pretty quick meetings lately, but that's worrying and it's not clear where they're trying to go with that.
Yeah, when they have financial challenges, they're looking for savings. So if they're 60%, could go back to being 50%. That saves them a lot of money. But I think you're using the same measurements that they were using when it was 50%, right?
Right.
And they've been paying, just so everyone's aware, especially Matt and Wanda and maybe Jen, they've been paying under protest for years, since probably
Which isn't really a thing, right?
2017, yeah.
Right.
Since the lawsuit, so.
So there's
now
no
they're paying
parameter
under
for
protest separately for these two different
the new
things.
things.
Right,
But the JPA doesn't have a parameter for paying under protest, right?
no.
No.
And there's really no legal remedy. Bill Parkin has looked at this too.
And Barbara, did you feel like the update that was given on the force main in Montera was, I mean, I read through what they said, everything is on
Yeah,
schedule.
it's
or ahead of
moving, it's
schedule.
moving along, they're doing it design build. So I don't remember the date exactly, but the date will come, I think, next spring, where the company that is doing the design will make a bid for the build. And if that bid is acceptable to Sam, then they just move right into that. They don't have to go out to bid again. And that's one of the advantages of design build. If they feel that they can get a better bid and want to stop and spend 3 months, Chuck, to put together a bid package, 4
Yeah,
months
and probably
go
more than
to
that.
bid
Yeah.
for other sources. So the chances are that the company doing design build is probably going to get the contract to do it. But they are still thinking that they are on track to meet the requirements of the ERF lawsuit. And that's the key thing.
And they so far staying within budget on.
Yeah,
this-
well, yeah,
Section they're in.
the budget is very undetailed, but yes, they're making progress.
So my question is that related to the issue that was discussed with, there must have been 30 to 40 people on the Zoom neighborhood in Seal Cove with the
Oh, yeah.
with the sewer leak that's running down the street. So
These are people who live in Seal Cove and are having landslide issues, and their sewer lines are breaking. And they think someone else should fix it.
they think it's Sam's responsibility to fix it.
Well, I'm not sure that they were in saying that. They were saying because of the collections contract, which says that Sam is responsible for making repairs. Which, we all know when you read this, Sam reports all the time, the collections crew goes to houses in El Granada and cleans out the drains and says, it's your problem, get a plumber. And that's essentially what needs to happen with these people.
So the breaks are in their laterals.
Yes, the breaks are in their laterals, and evidently in the past, Montera has
street.
repaired some of those at its cost, but now there are so many and it is so serious that
Very serious.
they aren't doing it anymore. Plus, a number of the houses have now been rented. So it's a big mess, but it really has nothing to do with Sam and nothing to do with us.
Because even if the SAM operations people go in and do the fix,
Collect,
Montera has to pay for it.
right, and they don't really, they're not contractors. Even Sam, if there's a break, they get Andrini in to fix it. That the break they just had a small sewer spill by the airport. They hire a contractor. They don't do the
Because it's
repairs.
private.
Well, even if it is on the Sam line, they hire a contractor. Sam, the collections people don't
Do the work.
do repairs. They do flushing, right, Chuck? They never do.
Yeah, they don't do repairs. They'll do minor things and flushing and whatnot, but they contract it out. Yeah, so.
If a manhole cover is off and they can put it, it back down, they do
Yeah.
that, but
Right.
they're not contractors.
But if
They
it's
can't
not-
repair lines.
If it's not SAM owned pipes, then it's up to MWSD to pay the cost. Or the
property
homeowner.
owner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
so
completely not a SAM issue at all. It's not, if it's not the IPS, which it isn't, it's not a SAM issue.
Yeah.
it's so sad though. These
It's-
people are in there talking with their little kids about how there's sewage running down their driveway and it's just awful. But
Yeah.
it's not something that either Sam or
I mean, the message was clear that they need to hire a private attorney to work with them.
Yeah, I think the letter from County Public Works said, while you're figuring out whether it's the homeowner's cost or, MWSD's cost, first fix it and then figure that out. So I guess the MWSD has to sort that out.
and they've been red tagged, or there's some of
Yeah,
them.
some houses have been red tagged
That's.
and some are getting yellow tagged.
Getting yellow tags, yes.
So
It's dire.
it's, I feel so bad for those people, but
Yeah, there may not be a fix for them.
Okay. Anything else on Sam?
If I could, Jen, just one quick thing. Nancy and Barbara, I think I'd recommend you ask Kishan for a monthly report, a true report on the IPS, the ERF project.
I did. And
Okay,
that's what we did one in the last meeting.
verbal or written?
Written. We had a
Okay.
written.
All
report.
right, good.
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry, but yeah,
okay, good.
All right. All right.
Chuck, you mean specifically on the Montero Force main replacement?
Yes.
yes, he said he's going to do that from now on. A good suggestion.
Yeah, that's good.
Great. All right, then, consent agenda. Anything anyone wants to pull from the consent agenda?
Who-
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Seconded?
Second,
Okay. Oh.
you can call the question.
What do I say now? I don't even know what to say.
All in favor?
Favor?
Oh, that's it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Zero opposed.
Consent agenda passes 5-0.
So moved. Committee reports. Any reports on seminars, conferences, or committee meetings?
Who?
All right. Information calendar, attorney's report, it's not here. General manager's report,
Nothing further?
administrative staff report.
There's an agenda memo in there if you have any questions about any of it.
I appreciate the memo though. Thank you.
I like it too.
Yeah.
And just one update on this, we did receive the notice from the fire department that we need to mow. I've spoken with RCD, they did a bird survey, and I've asked the contractor to set his blade at the highest possible level. So that will happen soon, because at this point, the fire department has specifically called out the property for potential fuel. So we need to take care of that.
So I hope they go through to make sure there's no nesting birds.
Yeah, so we have as part of our agreement with RCD, they go out and do a bird survey every time we're going to mow. And they also look around to see if there's just anything else that we need to be aware of. They did find some nesting birds in the willows, and so we've asked them to, mow, to stay 10, 15 feet away from the willows when they go down to mow. So that one section. And then you might have seen that the logs were replaced, which was very exciting. And then also, I don't know, I know Director Dye knows about this, and I'm not sure if the other directors are.
We
aware
know
of it, the
the sign.
So we did get the sign up, and then within a day, basically it had been covered with big no in
Oh,
graffiti.
I didn't know that part.
I didn't know that part.
To the park.
Yeah, so the sign went up, I believe, Friday or Saturday.
Saturday,
By
whatever
Monday
Saturday.
morning, when I came to work, somebody had spray painted no across the sign.
And tried to pull the new map off.
They tried to pull it off
Yeah.
first, and I think when that failed, they went ahead and spray painted it. So Nora and I spent a nice chunk of time down there on Monday afternoon trying to get the paint
It
off.
looks much
We could.
better.
It does look much better. You can, if you know what it said, then you can still see it.
Yeah.
But otherwise it kind of looks like fog has come over the park. We may just go ahead and get a new one. I don't like the idea of it
That's-
looking tacky like
Yeah.
that.
I'd have met, probably not aware that the original update of the park design, it was stapled onto that big board, was removed by somebody.
Last fall.
Late fall, and so they just finally put the new one up.
Well, we didn't notice
Again.
it was, so there
We
was
didn't
an
notice it
old
for a
one
while.
that was upside down still under it, and then there was a new one put on top of it that was
Oh.
replaced. someone ripped that one off, so then the upside down was showing, and then people were like, why is there an upside down map? Which were like, what?
I
So
know,
then they
yeah.
went out and replaced it. So.
And we did file a report with the sheriff's office this time.
And
And
you didn't get the camera up yet?
we have not gotten the camera up yet. We were
Maybe
gonna
put a
are we going to?
laminated sort of version that
do.
you could clean if someone paints on it.
Oh,
Which is what
right.
was talked about doing.
Let's
with
get
the
a
overnight parking
camera.
Signs too.
Yeah.
We are getting a camera.
Yeah,
We just have to figure out where we're gonna place it, because it's gonna have to be solar powered. It's gonna have to, you know.
Be hidden.
But, you know, I
Hidden.
think what frustrated me the most is just, you know, that's another, the sign was $300. We're gonna have to spend $300 for a camera. We're gonna have to pay for a monthly LTE service for that
Or-
camera
yeah.
to give this, you know,
Just
so
a
that we can
waste of
actually.
money.
It's a waste of
is.
taxpayer
It is.
dollars. And, you know, I told Chuck I might just go ahead and post next on Nextdoor a picture of Nora up there scrubbing. Because that is your taxpayer dollars at work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's really.
And we put so many
Oh,
cables
and I-
into it.
That's why they gave up.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure that's why they gave up and sprayed it instead.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
It's a little frustrating, but.
okay. Well, sorry that you had to deal with that. All right, so future agenda items, we have just 3 on here. Anything additionally? Are there any policy updates?
I will be working on the retention, the records retention policy next.
Oh, boy.
That's a big one. It's a big one. Yeah,
As
so
we talked
we
about
might
strict
have a couple easy ones in
Right.
there and then a big one. So,
Okay.
but
I
I
actually do need that for, you know, can I clean out the email or not?
yeah, exactly. But we do, you know, our next meeting for June is gonna be the sewer service charge public hearing.
Oh,
So that's already a bigger item. I don't know if we'll have any policy updates in the next meeting. We might just wait until July. And then in July, we'll have our sewer service charge that goes, you know, that goes out to the tax, to be put on the property tax. So we've got a couple big things. We also have the budget next month.
also in July, the lawsuit will be going to court. So that is going to be a big deal.
And we moved our June meeting, right?
Yes,
So
June
just for Matt
26th.
to know that.
It's 26.
June 26th.
Either way, I won't be there.
Juneteenth.
I have a meeting from 5 to 7, so I will zip up over here.
So,
I will not
June
be,
26th. It's a Thursday.
I will not be at the June meeting,
Okay.
even if it was on the old day. I'm gone like the 13th to the 30th.
Okay.
We'll be above the Arctic Circle.
okay, I believe we're done then. Let's call the meeting to close at 9:01
Okay.
All right, I'm going to Croatia.
right now.
Well,